Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. We are finishing Women Who Run with the Wolves today. I'm ecstatic. I really am. Now, it's going to be kind of wonky. I don't know how long this particular live is going to go because we're going to finish out chapter 14. And then I believe that chapter 15, as short as it is kind of like we're rounding out the entire book. Like we're going to round out the book in chapter 15, and it's going to be kind of like it's basically like the afterword, and like it's like the conclusion of the whole book. So there's not a lot of like real information in chapter 15, so that's okay. Now, for a little bit of backstory, we read half of chapter 14 of the Handless Maiden last live. That's already out. And we went through, she broke down the story of the Handless Maiden into these stages, right? Into these 7 stages. Now, 7 being a magic number, the number of completion, whatever, what have you. Then, we made it to the 3rd stage, and basically a lot of stuff's happened to the Handless Maiden so far, okay? She was a maiden. Her parents didn't appreciate her, or whatever fairy tale kind of a parent she had. And then the devil did some stuff to her. Her hands got chopped off. And then she went out into an initiation process into the forest, like one does. And then eat some fruits of the underworld. And then that was it. Okay. So a lot of stuff happened. And if you want to know more about the first half of chapter 14, please refer to the previous live. Okay. We're going to jump right in because I want to round out the last chapter and then kind of talk about the excitement of having been able to say now that I've read the entire book cover to cover. Okay? And then I hope many more people decide to read the book cover to cover. And if they need some analysis help, I guess, from my own kind of personal gnosis, it is available forever on YouTube now. So, all right. So we're at the 4th stage. We're finding love, right? So the Handless Maiden is in this kind of orchard, right? And with her being in the orchard, she's handless. She's eating pears, like bobbing for apples. And these masculine archetypes, for lack of a better term, have come upon her in the night. Okay. Hey, Dylan. And the king is very much the love interest in this tale. Okay. In this story. And so this 4th stage is about finding love. And it's about, to be honest, I believe that it's part of the individuation process in Jungian analysis, where it's like the marriage of opposites, right? So this whole stage is about finding typically in this book and in Jungian analysis, this is really about the anima and the animus, okay? And so these are archetypes, and we have to kind of wade through the psyche to figure out what exactly is going on. Excuse me. Okay. Now, it's broken down in a really cool way because the archetypes of the I guess you would call it the animus archetypes, the masculine archetypes, are broken down into 3, and that is the gardener, the king, and the magician. Okay. It was good, Dylan. It was good. I do celebrate it. So, but we may talk about that more in a little while. So, so anyway, I wanted to read this. It says, "This is the most sacred premise." This is from the book. "It means that if you are wandering, there is another, at least one, and often more, who is seasoned and experienced, and who waits for you to knock at the door, rap on the stone, eat a pear, or just show up in order to announce your arrival in the underworld." So by her eating the pear in the orchard, okay, she is basically knocking on heaven's door. Knocking on the underworld's door, telling the spirits there, the spirit helpers and the psychic helpers, that she's there. And like, hey, I need some help. So this is like the liminal space between the underworld and the outer world, or the world of the living, okay? In this kind of liminal hedge, right? This liminal space between, I need to get to the underworld, I need to deal with some stuff in the psyche, and I'm here, I need some help, right? You're holding up your lantern. And it's funny because it talks about the goddess, and it talks about the archetypes, and it talks about the maturity of the spirits in these liminal spaces, right? And I kind of had this epiphany that when we think about the gardener and the magician and the king, okay, who do we think about? Like, in terms of archetypes that act as what she would consider masculine guides, right? Samwise, Aragorn, and Gandalf. Okay. Samwise is the gardener, okay, stout hearted. And Gandalf is the wise, the wizard, the sage, okay. And then Aragorn is the king. They're all very good depictions. These are very good, prolific depictions of these three major guides and guardians and archetypes. So she describes them as intrapsychic forces, right? So kind of like in Bluebeard and kind of like in a lot of other stories, we have these intrapsychic forces told in different ways. We have it in the La Llorona. We have so many archetypes that we can bounce back from in previous chapters. And of course, we all know that she rolls over the chapters in such a way. So what she does further, though, is she goes over them in terms of, hey, Julie. She goes over the archetypes specifically as the forces that they are. Okay. So all the archetypes that we're seeing in this kind of orchard with the moat, in this liminal spiritual place between her world and the underworld, are the maiden, the spirit in white, the gardener, the king, the mage or the magician, the queen mother, which is also in this story particularly, is the crone as well, and the devil. Okay. And they each have different, like, I guess you would call them roles, you know. Now the maiden is the heartfelt, the formerly sleepy psychic in the psyche, right? She's been asleep, and she follows instructions and is open to what is coming. Okay, so that's the archetype of the maiden. And I've kind of talked about on my channel too about the maiden archetype being curiosity. It is the personification of curiosity and wonder and kind of innocence and naivete in large ways, but she's open. She's completely open, and she doesn't have enough experience to be bitter or cynical about life and or her psyche yet. She hasn't gotten a lot of experience for that. So that's what the maiden is. Now the spirit in white, we see a couple of times in the story, right? From the first stages on to the last stage, we see the spirit kind of following her, right? Now it says it's a guide. It's also a trailblazer, and they are invested in their human. So this is kind of, you could think of this, I always think of this in witchcraft terms as in terms of a fetch, right? And like maybe possibly a familiar, but in spirit terms, a familiar is a companion, not necessarily always a guide. Okay, they're different. So I would think that the spirit in white in witchcraft terms being a fetch. So anyway, I do too, Dylan. There's actually a book about this. I'm pretty sure you probably read it, about the four major masculine archetypes. That was really good. Okay. And that's probably, I would recommend that book. Maybe I'll leave it in the comments after this goes out. A link to that book, or maybe possibly even the title and the author, that there is some further reading. Now, let me stop myself from the story real fast and tell y'all that I'm planning on putting all the rituals and the tarot spreads and some of my insights into like this PDF file when this goes out, probably sometime in January 2025, for just instant download for you guys. Like there's some rituals that I had come up with for the Discord server, some tarot spreads. So if anyone coming at this in, future years would like to download some things to do, like actual exercises for you to do, like as you go through the book, then it should be available for you soon. But also in the back of that PDF, I want to list out some recommended reading, some books about Bluebeard, some books about archetypes, some book about really good books that I've read throughout reading this book about the actual wild soul, the wild self. There's some really good books out there on the market, and some are even modern. So you're getting more of a modern take. Now, I love the way this book is set up, okay? Because technically I am an old soul and I like her language that she uses in this book, but there are other modern takes where it's a little less feminism beats the patriarchy, okay? It's not always wise for feminism to beat patriarchy, but those are my, sociological views. Oh, I didn't know that there were 4 separate books. Now I know that I've seen the one book, I thought, and maybe it's just compiled into one. Maybe they put it into one, the one I read. So, yeah, let me back up because Dylan said kind of like Cora. Cora is definitely the maiden in the Persephone tale. Hey, Julie. Hey, Ange. Let's see what we got going here. Oh, you'll have to share that Power of the Crone YouTube channel for me because I love the Crone. Alchemy of Minimum. Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah. I think I'm going to look them up. Because I should be starting perimenopause soon. I think. How the hell would I know? I don't know. I'm only guessing that it should be soon. Right around the corner. Okay, right around the Crone's corner. Anyway, okay, and then you have so let me get back to the story. Okay, so we're going over the archetypes, right? And we have the gardener, okay, so the Samwise character, the cultivator of the soul. Now, if you think about the way she describes these archetypes, you can so see the Lord of the Rings. The cultivator of the soul, fertility archetype, revels in the cycles of growth and entropy. So like Esty talks a lot in this whole book about the life, death, life cycles. And the gardener is the one that is really about the fecundity of all those cycles. So it's not necessarily about only fertility and only growth, but entropy as well and dying off. Okay. Now I wrote read underlined. Intracyclically, there is constant living, constant death dealing, constant replacement of ideas, images, and energies. I liked that. So I highlighted actually a lot in this archetypal last chapter, if you will. Okay, then we have the king. Now the king is wizened and learned, okay, and puts inner knowing into practice and does what needs to be done. You can think of him very much as like an emperor figure in the tarot, which he is. All the kings and the emperor are the king archetype. Able to change for newer knowledges and paths. Okay, as we see as we go on, like when he leaves home, when he leaves on his journey to go find her in the forest, he very much lets himself go rogue and feral. That's his ability to change because he has to have his, in this book, feminine counterpart. He has to have her to be whole, I guess you could say. And then we have the mage, okay? Then we have Gandalf, okay? Direct magic of power. Instinctual, it's an instinctual feminine power, actually. And they assist in the ability to become whatever you wish to portray in yourself. So this is the actual embodiment of being able to portray what you want. And the only way in terms of like story and in terms of mythos, the only way that you can be able to do that is through magic. Okay. You have to have that kind of magical element to be able to perform in those ways. It doesn't, it kind of has to just transform like as if by magic. So that's pretty hardcore. And then we have the Queen Mother. Now, the queen mother is the king's mother, but she's also technically the crone in this story, which Estes kind of explains, which when we think of story and storytelling, we usually have this kind of mother figure, right? Now, as we know, the maiden doesn't really have, archetypal parents. So she has to find her own. That's the whole point. She has to go find her own. Yeah, she has to go find her own. And I think that the queen mother would represent the archetypal mother for her, someone that she has found, like a found mother archetype within her own psyche, but then also so learned and wizened and been there, done that she also has to embody the crone archetype as well. So it can get kind of confusing in this particular story. They should have separated them, in my view, but they didn't. So I'll explain that in a minute. What did Dylan ask me? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. He asked me if I believe that the emperor is all the kings combined. Yes, I believe that. Technically, I believe that the court cards are fragmented in such a way to help us understand different archetypal positions that we will hold in our life. Okay. And the overarching archetypes are what the major arcana is. There's just no question there. I do too. I have several found mothers as well. You have to find them within yourself. And then I was reading something about this that I can't remember now. It was an article, okay, that like my animus, okay, my animus would be made up of all of the men that I knew in my developmental years. And I calculated it out. And I was talking to my sister about this actually at Christmas. And I said, we've got the neighbor, who was a grandfather figure to us. And then we have the neighbor across the street from us, who was like my dad's best friend, who was very much a vagabond, bachelor. He was a bachelor vagabond. He was kind of like, he was nuts. Okay. He was just nuts. And he lived by himself. He was a bachelor. But my dad and him got along great. Okay. So he had that neighbor, the neighbor beside us for 15 years, they were our grandparents, me and my sister. And so I had them. And then I had my dad's other best friend, who was a much older gentleman, and he was very sophisticated, was always in a suit and tie whenever we saw him, and always had a way, he spoke so eloquently all the time. But him and my dad met in some like golfing tournament thing. And he was very sophisticated, right? So whenever we would see him, he was sophisticated. So much more different than the vagabond, crazy nut job that lived across the street from us. So we had and that was it. None of our other uncles or any cousins or none of the other men in our life were around us that much. These 4 men, plus my dad, okay, made up and their personalities make up my animus. And when I told my sister this, she was like, that makes a lot of sense for us. Like, it was uncanny. I was like, yeah, because when I've done this, I think of blank and I think of then. And I embody so many of these, creature titilizations inside the psyche because of these other men. And I just thought that was totally uncanny. That reading that, I was like, I firmly know this now, that my anima and animus is based on the people that I grew up with in my developmental years. So think about that for a minute. It might scare the shit out of you, but because it did me. I was like, oh God. But anyway, so we have the queen mother, okay, and this found mother, okay, is the authority that can see through the tricks, soften curses. So that means in terms of story, and kind of archetypal curses too. She's pregnable with ideas. She's like the fertile soil. The queen mother is the fertile soil still. Okay. fragrant sludge waiting on new growths. That was a quote on the book, and I loved it. She's the muck in which ideas can come forth. So that's crazy. All right, let's get to this in the book because I want to keep up with the book too because I've got a lot of stuff highlighted. Then we have the devil, who's the natural predator. He is against nature. He is against you from the get-go. He's the predator, which we talk about in the Bluebeard. That's like chapter 2 of this book. We talk about the predator of the psyche. Okay, that is the devil. The devil is the predator in your own psyche. But she does explain, okay, that this is not the alter soul, the alternative soul that you have, right? Like the anima, the animus. This is not the archetypal alter ego that you have in your psyche. This is not the shapeshifter. She explains that the devil is the predator alone. And again, for anyone watching in the future, if you want to know more about the predator archetype, refer back to our Bluebeard chapter. Now it does say that you'll know the difference if it's the predator or the archetypal shapeshifter in your psyche, if they come to you in dreams and seem to harass you in order to force a descent to the underworld, okay? The alter shapeshifter soul inside of you will come to you as an ally, not ever as in a predator way, in a manipulative way. They are trying to help you. They are your ally, okay? And they are trying to force, during a pivotal point in your life, they're trying to force a descent. They're trying to force you to go to the underworld, okay? So you have to kind of let the shapeshifter devil, the shapeshifter, be your devil's advocate. That's kind of what it is. It's the devil's advocate. But the devil itself is different. He's just the predator. The natural predator that exists in everyone's psyche. Okay. Now then we're getting out of the now we're getting off the archetypes, and we're going into actual finding love. So this is where the maiden's fallen in love with the king, and they have this life with this queen mother archetype, who's, if you think about it, the queen mother is kind of teaching her how to be a wife and to be this kind of still this ally role, right? Like she still doesn't know how to do it on her own. So she has to have this, mother archetype with her. Hence why he goes off to war. And then when he goes off to war and the devil starts mixing up their messages, she has to yet again go on another initiation journey because she still doesn't know how to do any of this herself with her own psyche. So and that's definitely, look, there are a lot of people that you meet, okay? Actually, I have an older brother my oldest brother, there are 5 of us. My oldest brother was that for me. Like, I'm not doing any of your crap because you're just teaching me what not to do, bro. And all throughout life until I was about 20 years old, he was one of those, I love him to death, but he was one of those. You learn what not to do by the people around you, But that's when you start to think in these archetypal ways and you don't even realize it because you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be like that neighbor, but this guy is kind of old and decrepit. So, and he has a lot of outdated ideas, right? And whenever I would talk to this grandfather figure of mine, you would sit and I'd be cross-legged and I would be like talking to him about something and he would be going off into a story about his, his life and how different it was. And then whenever you would kind of talk to him about something new, like technology or computers or something, he would just kind of shut down. He would just be like, no, we're not going to talk about that. And I'd be like, so you have to be careful when, not careful. I don't want to say it like it's bad. I want to say it like you meet so many people that you either learn what not to do and you have to know who's open and who's stuck in their own era. Okay. And I've learned the hard way through having my own children too, that they're the same way. They don't like when they say something about a new trend or something. I'm like I get kind of annoyed at them, right? And then I'm like, I've become that. I've become my grandfather. I've become my grandfather. Yeah, yeah. Now, I'll say this, Dylan. Dylan comes up with a good point about archetypes, that most of my family combined had more women, okay? But I want you to think about the fact that just because they were women doesn't necessarily mean that none of those women had any masculine archetypes within them. Like many of my aunts, why did I say aunts like that? I say aunts. I don't know why. Sometimes I get weird when I say aunts because people get on to me. A lot of my aunts were very masculine, and I mean very masculine. I had one beloved aunt that like smoked a cigar and hacked. She had a deep voice, and she just overall was not very feminine at all. But I loved her, and she had this kind of devil may care attitude about her, and a fearlessness and a courage. And she had been through some stuff, man. Like to hear her talk, like she would just sit at the kitchen table and like smoke her cigar and tell stories, right? And I would just be lapping that up. I would be like, please don't stop saying anything. But so some of the women in your life might have been masculine archetypes for you, and you didn't even realize it. So that I'm not saying that you didn't think about that. I'm just saying that I would. That I would say that I had those four actual, like men in my life, but there were a lot of masculine women in my life. And so, and when I think about it, I'm truly blessed, okay, because of those men that I had, I was never taken advantage of in any kind of traumatizing way, okay. And sometimes, goes the other way, but I mean, sometimes, I have to count my lucky stars about that kind of stuff. Like any of those men, none of them related to me except for my dad. Okay, could have gone the other way, and it never did. It was just one of those respectful things, I guess. I think they were scared shitless of my dad, but that's just my own daughter. That's my own perception of my like being a daughter. Yeah, if you think everyone's scared of your dad. so anyway, okay, let's get back to the story, right? Just because I need to end this. Then we can kind of talk about the book and talk about all this archetypal stuff. That's beautiful stuff that's going on, okay? Okay, so finding love is the marriage of opposites in alchemy. Each acts like flint that will spark a fire. That's what she says. The fruits are a beautiful symbol here, for they imply that no matter what our journey is foretold, and we will not we know our journey is foretold, and we will not hunger in the underworld. She also talks about the moat surrounding this orchard and how the spirits in white have to be the ones to stop the water, to make the water sink so that she can cross, because that technically is the river Styx, and it's not for the land of the living, it's for the land of the dead. Well, that's that mama bear, Dylan. That mama bear. That's a real thing. Mama bears are real. Oh. Now, I like the moat as a symbol because it's technically a boundary, a life-death life boundary. Now, I highlighted something that I wrote in my notebook to read. Because you must pass through the land of the dead in a descent, sometimes you become confused and think you must die, but this is not so. The task is to pass through the land of the dead as a living creature, for that is how consciousness is made. How profound is that? How profound is that? Because when you're going into the underworld, you think, oh, I need to die because I'm going there. But it's not. You have to learn how to skirt the underworld in such a way that your path is leading you where the end results not death, it's consciousness. Ooh, I thought that was profound. I stopped reading for a second and was like, yes. So now the questions you can ask about the underworld are, okay, and it's a kind of a knowing how to know about the difference between you going to the underworld in a death cycle or you go into the underworld in a consciousness way. Okay. Excuse me. In answering one question, another question comes, and to learn more, we answered those two. Here are some of the questions. How does one live in the topside world and the underworld at the same time and on a day-to-day basis? What does one have to do to come down into the underworld all on one's own? What circumstances in life help women with the descent? Do we have a choice about going or staying? What spontaneous help have you received from the instinctual nature during such a time? And these are all the questions you need to be asking yourselves. Julie, when you said that, I thought about Lord of the Rings, Sean Bean, you know, that meme where he's like, one doesn't simply walk into Mordor, you know? It is folly. And it's really true, okay? Because technically that is an archetypal journey as well, if you think about it. You can analyze that. I can analyze that for a whole 2 hours, but I'm not going to, okay? Okay. Now, Estes talks about the meeting that happens in this orchard, okay? She's eating the orchard. She's kind of bobbing for apples there, bobbing for pears. And the king and the magician are sitting there, and the spirit in white is kind of floating, following their human, okay? And there's kind of this meeting is a tension, okay? And the meeting in the underworld with all the psychic archetypes is the tension of opposites. However, this stage of being held in love is only the middle. Okay, so we're getting held in love by all these psychic archetypes are kind of like, again, all of the previous stories that we've read before in this book have these kind of psychic helpers. Okay, they all rush to you and they're like, oh my gosh, you're coming to the underworld. Here we go. We got to help. Okay. And they all have a job and they all know what to do. So we need to like heed the lessons. Okay. All right. Now we're in the 5th stage. Okay. Now we're harrying the soul. Okay. This is the complaint. We're complaining. Okay. And our soul is in need of repair, I would say, in this stage. The king goes to war. There he goes. You know, in most stories, you know, I mean, probably the most famous is Cinderella. Okay. The dad marries the stepmom and the 2 evil stepsisters, and then Deuce, gotta go bye. Okay. Left to her own devices. Okay. And it happens in many, many stories, many tales. The king leaves the woman in order for her to learn to stand on her own in her new psychic stance. So now that she's got all these archetypes with her, okay, she's got the magician and the gardener and the king and the queen mother / crone, and she's using this time without him, without her, I would say, without her masculine counterpart, to learn how to stand on her own psychically. And this is it's kind of a testing period. You know, it's another type of initiation, but it's more of a testing, not an initiation. And so anyway, however, with a new life, She has the refreshed love of the masculine and the wild self within her now. Okay. So when she gets pregnant, this is kind of like this archetypal thing that happens where the king kind of gives what he needs and then leaves because he's like, you've got to deal with this on your own. You got to deal with what to do on your own. Okay. And so she's tested with this child self of hers because she references this baby being a child self. She's birthing a new portion of herself. That's what's happening. The birth that cometh is very much the like kind of like this immaculate conception archetypal thing, right? And I mean, I guess if you know, you know. And the child will renew her psychically and be able to birth this new self. Okay, with I think it's youthful exuberance, it's wonder, it's awe, and she has to learn how to get back into that like childlike, mindset in order to live in this archetypal I'm standing on my own psychically way. No, I said read, underline. What did I write? It is the spirit babe that causes women who are diddling around doing the safe thing to take on the open road under their tinker pack. That is so good. That is so good. The spirit babe causes women who are diddling about doing the safe thing, which we read about too, to take to the open road bent under their tinker pack. Yes. I mean, we know of so many tales and stories where you get to your wit's end and then you just pick up a backpack and you just leave. You just go, because you have to, because your psyche can't take it anymore. And you're like, okay, I don't know how to deal. I don't know how to be. I don't know who I am. And like, I mean, one of the biggest examples is the book Wild that was turned into a movie with Renee. Is it Renee? No, it's Reese Witherspoon. Sorry. Where she just has to go off on her own and find herself in the woods. That's basically what it is. This archetypal, I got to go find myself with a backpack. She begins the path of the whole self. That's it. Oh, hi. Hi, Antoinette. Yes. Oh, yeah, I know. I think I've seen that, Julie, the movie where the woman's trapped behind the wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're everywhere, these kind of stories and movies and stuff. Let's see. I thought I underlined something else, but it's okay. The path of the whole self. Okay, so that's what she's doing now. And it is this after birthing stage. We know something is coming to knock us back to our old selves. Okay, so that's when we're in this, I need to walk on my own 2 feet. We have obstacles, just inevitable obstacles, okay, that are going to come. And who should show up but the devil again, okay, the predator, okay? The predator rides in to smear us into submission. But I want to read this, okay? I think I want to read this. I didn't even highlight it. I circled it. She may have to trek into the hills, leaping from rock to rock, trying out her voice against the mountain. God, this woman, I swear to all that is holy, this woman knows how to write. Okay? I just love her prose. Just, geez. She may need hours of starry nights where the stars are like face powder split on a black marble floor. She may feel she will die if she does not dance naked in a thunderstorm, sit in perfect silence, return home ink-stained, paint-stained, tear stained and moon stained. God, is that not like the perfect prose? Missy, go sit down. I need to cut her toenails. Lay down. Jeez. Just clack, 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 clack. Okay. Love the prose. I know, Dylan, I know, right? Like, we know, okay? So y'all know me, right? I'm Storm Witch. But, so yeah, I'll be out there, I call it rain bathing, but storm bathing just as good in a safe way. But here down in the South, I know how to do it where it can be safe, you know? There's a way you can do it. There's a way you can storm bathe. But man, the air after a storm, oh Lord. So yeah, but anyway, it's like the prose, you know? Oh. So then the devil comes, okay? The devil comes and he's making the messages all kind of weird and okay, like the messages, like she's had the babe, right? She's had this child self. Then the queen mother / crone messages the king that's off at war. Hey, you had your baby. And the king is ecstatic, like we know, okay, because he's the soul counterpart to her. But the devil is, you know, intercepting the messages and twisting them into this sneering, trying to revert both of them actually back to their old selves before they knew each other. Back to this, the king back to this place of what would you say? A sovereign rut. A cyclical sovereign rut that the king would have been in, and the maiden being just this naive, handless maiden again. Okay. He wants them to stay like they are instead of coming together in full psychic awareness and consciousness. He wants that. But he don't succeed, okay? Because the devil don't ever succeed, all right? The devil don't get his due because Johnny plays a good fiddle, okay? The devil as a predator is just as timeless as anything else in the psyche, okay? We need only learn how to deal with it, and it will always be attracted to our light, which is what the child is. So the child in this instance is our light, is this light that we keep seeing in this handless maiden story, where she radiates this light and this purity of soul, okay? It's like what attracts the unicorns too, right? Which is a weird juxtaposition when you think about it, okay? You're either going to attract the unicorn or attract the devil. Is the unicorn the devil? Okay? Got to know the difference. I do. So many other things will produce this pure light within our psyche. And the ultimate question here is, can the marriage of opposites survive, thrive, and birth new things from their union? Really good question. Really good question. When the psyche is pushed, it is pushed in this harrowing way, in this hurtful way, and it launches itself into a new initiation, right? So now that the queen mother's thinking, the king's like, I'm not killing her or your babe. What are you talking about? Like, I don't care if it's got 3 heads. What are you talking about? And the queen mother being, and the crone too, psychically aware, she's like, I'm not doing that. So, no, I'm not doing what you say. And sends the girl and the babe back off into the woods, initiating another initiation. Because she must. Because she's like, get out. He gone crazy, girl. Get out. Anyway, so at this time, the woman wears the veil, the iconic symbol of mystery, and she takes this trek to truly understand the life cycles again. Okay, she has to keep going down these. Now, this is what's interesting, is because we see her going through a couple of initiations, right? And it's really important to recognize that you don't just go through one initiation in your life psychically. You're going to have to keep doing it, right? And like depending on the people you know, the archetypes you know, the ones that you're going to keep hidden, the ones that you're keeping in the shadow, all that kind of stuff, it you're going to continue to go into these initiatory journeys. And as soon as you come out of one, you're like, oh, I can breathe again. And as soon as you come complacent, the devil gonna come back, you know? And it's like, I don't know if we'll ever become truly conscious enough to never deal with the predator again. I don't actually believe that. I don't actually believe that the predator will ever die. We just get better and better about handling him, you know? So, okay. All right, let's see. What page will be on here? All right, before we start the 6th stage, as in the tale where the two women tearfully bid each other goodbye, we must say goodbye to precious internal forces that have helped us immeasurably. Then, with our new child self held to our heart and breast, we step onto the road. The maiden is on her way again, wandering towards a great wood, in all great faith that something will come from the great hall of trees, something soul-making. Yes, going back off into the forest. Because something great is waiting around the bend. Right, now. Now we're back into the forest, okay? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Antoine. I mean, like thunder and lightning. Yeah, like a thunderstorm. I don't know. Hurricanes are storms, and they have powerful energy, in my opinion. So, but I don't necessarily, I mean, depending on where you are in the storm, I think that it would be hella cool to dance naked inside the eye of a hurricane storm because they have an eye. But it's dangerous as hell, so you probably couldn't get away with doing it. But internally, okay, in this kind of weird, playful mind game you could do with yourself, maybe. We haven't either, Dylan. Usually December and January are like our stormy months where we get a lot of like cold rain that never turns to ice because it's hot as shit down here still. God. But we haven't gotten a lot of rain. We had a very dry El Nino, which is weird for us. But the South's doing something weird anyway. The South of the U.S. is doing something weird. Meteorologically. Okay, so the 6th stage, we're in the realm of the wild woman. All right. The silver-handed queen goes into the wildest woods, back for another initiation. She comes to an inn where she stays for 7 years, and in that time her hands grow back from hard soul work. After such a handless listlessness, she can find peace and usefulness once again. So it's really about that. It's when you become complacent, you get this kind of, you feel this uselessness about yourself, and you feel like helpless in a way, helpless to your own self and your own psyche. And especially because you've gone through this mothering stage, you get to a place where you're like, okay, I don't know who I am anymore because that damn thing died in me. The me that I knew died in childbirth. And I don't know what to do about it. So, so you have to become initiated. You have to know all that, you know, and you have to go and do things that will remake your soul because you're a new person, and you have to go figure it out. You have to go figure out who this new soul is. And it takes some internalization, and it's hard work. It really is. I've had to do that almost every single one of my actual children were born. Go off, like, find myself again, find my new brain. Interesting, Dylan. That's true. Our winter storms happen during the day, but I can't remember well, our summer storms happen in the evening for us. Like, you know, 7 o'clock. Not really overnight, but yes. Well, and see, when you're dealing with deep shadow, okay, for me, when you're dealing with deep shadow and you're coming across this kind of new soul, you have a new soul every time something happens. You get initiated and then you're like, okay, I don't know, then you got become complacent, you feel listless and restless and useless, and you start going, okay, I need to go and find myself again, and you start to dig into the shadow, okay, like with a shovel, and then before you know it, you realize that you don't really know yourself, and you have to find them out again. And it's the same thing every time you're initiated. You haven't known yourself, and you've let yourself become unknown. That's the whole, I think that, to me, that's the whole point, is that you can't let it get to a place where you're allowing it to stay unknown. Yes, reconciliation, exactly. Okay, it is possible, but there are tasks that one has to fulfill the tasks of initiation. Okay, and we see this in Vasilisa and Bobby with the Baba Yaga chapter. Okay, because we don't know, they didn't lay out the tasks in this story, but there are tasks that, and she even says that there are tasks that you must complete. And it's by doing each one of these tasks that gets you the boon at the end. See, the boon with Baba Yaga was the skull lantern. Okay, that would light the fire. Okay, you get the boon at the end, and you have to complete all the tasks, right? So in this, the boon at the end would be getting her hands back, but she has to complete each task. We just don't know what they are. They just kind of skipped that part, but they're soul tasks. And it was kind of beautiful to read the passage of the layers of the woman's density. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. As a woman transits through these cycles, her layers of defense, protection, and density become more and more sheer until her very soul begins to shine through. I loved this because she goes through the fact that 7 years, and a seven being the magical number here, you go through these cycles every 7 years, right? And if you think about it in kind of like logical ways, now we all know that 7 years is a cellular cycle too. So every 7 years you've got new regeneration, you know, Doctor Who style, right? And so you already know cellularly that is happening to you, but then also psychically it's happening to you too because of the new cells. So you really become these new people. And she breaks it down all the way until like 105 years old. So I really liked that. But it says the older you get psychically, the more transparent you become. You lose your weight, you lose your density. And it's like you're looking into pure white light. And I just thought that was the most beautiful thing I'd read in this book. Um, uh, this beautiful, aged, learned, archetypal transparency. Mm, okay. The forest has symbolic attributes for any initiate, and they are animation, feeling, speech, taste, sight, hearing, and smelling. So they're the senses, but it's also about this kind of felt sense and this wonder and enchantment that you feel, and you need them all to complete the sixth stage. You need them all to go through the cycles. Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, chariot vibes for sure. Mm. Dylan, you'll have to explain the ship paradox to me. I don't know what that is. The self must be developed before following a path to overcoming the self. Mm. You just love reading about stuff like this. I love reading about stuff like this, to be honest. The self and the psyche and then you start getting this like you start to have these epiphanies, right? And like that's the whole point. You want the epiphanies. You want to feel like you want to feel like you're smarter. You want to feel like you're smarter psychically, and that even if like maybe I'm still stuck at 7 years old in soul years, okay, but learning what it would look like to get to 105 soul years is just cool as hell to me. All right, all right. Now look, we're in the seventh stage, the end of the seventh stage, okay? Is the wild bride and groom. They've come together and the marriage has happened. And the king wanders for 7 years to find his wife and child, okay? And in so many tales, the king or the animus follows the maiden and has to reach their own obstacles. Now, here's where it becomes interesting, okay? Because technically the handless maiden is the heroine's journey, okay? But the king is living out the hero's journey. And it's like this Vesica Pisces. It's like this intertwining of the two. That's what the alchemical marriage is the hero's journey meeting the heroine's journey. Now, I know that so many people, Young, Joseph Campbell, so many people think that the woman or the anima doesn't go through its own journey, but I don't believe this. Okay. We're all going to go on a journey. And they basically said that the anima and the feminine is what the goal is for the male. Of course it is, because he's been following her. He's following her, and it's a cycle, okay? But she has to be doing and going somewhere too for him to follow her along the path, okay, along the circle. So if we're the goal isn't to obtain and like eat the feminine, it's to grab her, and then a marriage happens, in the alembic, okay? And so the handless maiden has been going on the heroine's journey, and the king has been going on the hero's journey. We just haven't we didn't know every single part of the hero's journey that he was going on. But when he leaves and goes and finds her, and it takes him 7 years, and he's going feral, right? Outside of the story, that he's living out the Hercules hero's story, the hero's journey. He's reliving that. We just don't get to read about everything. Just kind of like the handless maiden, but they're both going on their own journey. Okay, let me read this thought experiment here. Ooh. Just off the top of my head, okay, let me put this up to the screen, okay? This is the thought experiment of the ship paradise, right? I'm gonna say this real fast. Now, a thought experiment requires thought, okay? So without me having thought about it very long, I will tell you my thoughts. That if a ship, okay, the SOS minnow, okay, is sitting there, and then most everything has been replaced: the wood, the sails, the canvas, the rope. Like, okay, we're tearing it down, okay? This is an initiation, okay? When the entire thing redoes, still called ship, but you need to name it a different name. It would no longer be the SOS minnow. or the SS Minnow. It would be not the SOS, SS Minnow. It would be the SS Persephone or whatever. Name it something else. Give it another name because it has gone through a transformation that deems its own respect. That's what I'll say. That's my thoughts on that. But I haven't thought about it. Okay. I haven't thought about it too much. Uh, all right, let me read this. It is no wonder that both the maiden and king are caused to walk psychic lands where such processes take place. They can be learned only in this wildish nature. Okay, they have to both go through their own hero and heroine's journey. One of the most amazing things about this long initiation is that the women undergoing this process continue to do all the regular living of topside life, loving lovers, birthing babies, chasing children, chasing art, chasing words, carrying food, paints, skins, fighting for this and the other, burying the dead, doing all the workaday tasks as well as this deep, faraway journey. A woman at this time is often torn in two directions, for there comes over her an urge to wade in the forest as though it is a river, and to swim in the green, and to climb to the top of a crag and sit face into the wind. It is a time when the inner clock strikes an hour that forces a woman to have a sudden need of a sky to call her own, a tree to throw her arms about, a rock to press her cheek against. Yet she must live her topside life as well. Woo. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Sorry. I zoned out for a second. Okay, so remember when I said the hero he follows the maiden, going on the hero's journey, he follows the maiden, okay? But he must walk in her shoes to be worthy. Same thing with a maiden. They both have to kind of walk in each other's shoes for a while to be worthy of each other. Now, okay, I'm going to end this by saying that this psychic marriage, okay, is a time with wild women is hard at first to repair injured instinct, banish naivete, and over time to learn the deepest aspect of soul, psyche and soul, to hold on to what we have learned, to not turn away, and to speak out for what we stand for. All this takes a boundless and mystical endurance. When we come up out of the underworld after one of our undertakings there, we may appear unchanged outwardly, but inwardly we have reclaimed a vast and womanly wildness. And on the surface, we are still friendly, but beneath the skin, we are most definitely no longer tame. Damn, what a way to end chapter 14. Okay. What a way to end it. Ugh. All right. Now, chapter 15 is the deep song, okay? Canto, Hondo, which actually I'll talk about in a video coming out on my channel in a few days, actually. But I'll tell you that in a minute. So this is like the afterword. To me, this chapter is about like the conclusion of the whole book. And it's about shadowing, okay? And it's about shadowing is the ever watchful in a transparent way. The wild force, the wild self, okay? She's telling us that whatever we've read in this book, the wild self will shadow us, is shadowing us. And it shadows us for a reason. It is our motherland and our inheritance. We crave this reunion, and when we sense her presence, we shadow her as she shadows us. So we're circling her, okay? And I want to read the passage here. Let's see, it says 460. There we go. All right. Let us keep it now. Okay. Sorry. Before I read this, I want to say that technically this is the end. We have come to the wild self. We know so much more about the wild self and our wild nature. And we know more about human nature, existence, and the psyche. And I found myself very emotional when I read the end of this chapter, when I read the end of this conclusion. And I want to read this passage. Okay. Let us keep in mind that the best cannot hide. Meditation, education, all the dream analysis, all the knowledge of God's green acre is of no value if one keeps it all to oneself or one's chosen few. So come out wherever you are. Leave deep footprints because you can. Be the old woman in the rocking chair who rocks the idea until it becomes young again. Be the courageous and patient woman in the crescent moon bear who learns to see through illusion. Don't be distracted by burning matches and fantasies like the little match girl. Hold out till you find the ones that you belong to, like the ugly duckling. Clear the creative river so La Llorona can find what belongs to her. Like the handless maiden, let the enduring heart lead you through the forest. And like La Loba, collect the bones of lost valuables and sing them back to life. Forgive as much as you can, forget a little, and create a lot. What you do today influences your matrilineal lines in the future. The daughters of your daughters are likely to remember you, and most importantly, follow in your tracks. The ways and means of living with the instinctual nature are many, and the answers change as you change and as the world changes. So it cannot be said, do this and this in this particular order and all will be well. But over my lifetime, as I've met wolves, I have tried to puzzle out how they live, and for the most part in such harmony. So for peaceable purposes, I would suggest you begin right now with anything on the following list. For those who are struggling, it may help greatly to begin with number 10. General Wolf rules for life. Eat, rest, rove in between, render loyalty, love the children, cavil in moonlight, tune your ears, attend to the bones, make love, and howl often. Whew. Yeah. Shit. Okay. Me too, Julie. Me too. This book's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me in terms of a reading experience. Although I did read, I've read so many other good books, but this, the way she talks, the way she uses language, it has touched something. It has changed me. This book in and of itself for this 2024 has become my own initiation. God, okay? And I just have fallen so much more in love. Now, I've always been a feral. Now, if you're familiar with me and my channel, you know that I'm a feral person anyway. I revel in the ferality and I revel in my wild self. And I do have to go through my own initiations and my own things with my wild self. I have to renew her a lot of times. And stuff happens to me where I become complacent too. And I literally have to renew the wild self. But I have such a reverent relationship with it and always have, that reading this book acted as its own initiation on how to get to know it a little bit better. Actual exercises, actual archetypes that I can dive into, actual shadow stuff that I didn't know that I could dive into. It gave me such practical advice on how to keep that reverent relationship alive. And I'm beyond ecstatic that I can say that I've finished this book. I've read it cover to cover now, and I love it so much. It's possible, Dylan. It's possible because I love that book. I was swallowing Dylan down. God, that was so funny. And wild things do rest. Thank you, Julie. They do. Okay. Even the wolves out there are laying down sometimes, you know? But Dylan said this, and I just almost spit out my tea. Can I write this? If this doesn't exist, I think this would be an absolutely kick-ass like newsletter. Wouldn't that be a cool newsletter? Like, I'm just getting a lot of ideas for that. Feral Weekly. That would be awesome. I know, right? It should be. I'm gonna actually think about that. I'm gonna, as another thought experiment. All right. Now I want to end this, okay? In the back. So much shit over here. In the back of my latest book, Immaculate Immortality, channeled Dark Feminine Poetry. This is out on Amazon, okay? The very last poem, God. Okay, there we go. The very last poem in this book is an ode to La Loba, okay? And a truly heartfelt ode to this book, okay? And it's called Bone Woman. I want to read it to you to end Women Who Run with the Wolves, to nod us back to the beginning, okay? This is my poem to the Bone Woman. Hidden in the soul, buried all alone, collect the swag in deserts strown. Sift the mountains, comb longings lost, find the bones at all cost. Assemble the wolf, swirl the dust, heart beneath ribs, full-bellied and trust. Sing over bones, still and sedate, words untroubled, deciphering the fates. Drumbeat steady, shaken sandy shores, with roaring cackle, pounce from the core. Magic in marrow, fangs in shadowed maw, flight from fire, landing on paws. Creature transform, laughing as she runs, wild woman awaken, never to be shunned. That was so good. That was my ode to the wild woman, to the bone woman, to La Loba. Nod back to the beginning. All right, my babies. Oh, and look, a whole composition notebook, an entire one, okay? An entire one for the entire book. I filled in one composition notebook. And it will go on the shelf with this book to be together forever. Completely ecstatic. Cannot believe that this is over. And I'm just so happy with it. I'm so happy with what I was able to accomplish with this book. I do want to know that for anyone that's in the Discord server, I will be taking that down. Now, I might someday in the future, I don't know, I might make a channel Discord server. But for Women Who Run with the Wolves, specifically this book club, I will close out the Discord. So whatever may be on there that you want to save or something, you know. And I don't really know. I had so many people that there were like 30 people in there when we started. And so many of them haven't read the book, or they're not they don't come to the lives and stuff like that. So I'm not sure what happened to the rest of the people in the Discord, but I just want to give a shout out here that the Discord will self-destruct sometime this weekend. So, what do you mean group gathering? Like a group video? Oh, instead of a Discord? How would that happen though? Like I would just Zoom meet everyone in my Discord? I mean, I guess I could have done that, but oh, okay. Well, thank you, Tony. Oh, okay. Yeah, like Zoom gathering. Yeah. Now, some people in other Discord servers that I follow do that, but I just never thought about it like that. Man, because I'm kind of like a weird woman of my word when it comes to stuff. So if I set out to do a live every single month for this book, I can't go back on my word. Like it just, once it's in there, once it's out there in my head and I've like made a vow, I'm not going to go back and like change it up. It's kind of like this weird, when I make a promise, I have to keep it kind of thing. So it's kind of weird. Like if halfway through the year I could have just changed it to go trendy, to a more trendy avenue, I wouldn't have done it. It's something I can't do it in my brain. So like I told people, I vowed that I would do this every month for everyone live, and I just couldn't. I mean, there were a couple of lives where for like 30 minutes I was talking to the ether. Like there was a big 0 up at the top, and I was like, I'm just going to talk about the book, about the chapter. So there were a few lives in the middle of this year where no one showed up until like 30, maybe 45 minutes into the live. And it's really weird to talk to nothing. So I don't, like I said, I don't really know what happened to the other people that were here, but done now, and it's over. Go forth and be wild, and all of these will be on YouTube, okay, in a playlist for Women Who Run with the Wolves. I hope many other people consider reading the book and coming over, because I think I'm the only one that were like really deep dived into the entire book. Most people only do like the first chapter. So many people have done just like the first maybe 2 chapters and then they stopped. So for anyone that's wanting to get like an actual kind of a review, maybe like a analysis of explaining what the chapters mean, officially 12 videos of that now on the internets. So anyway, I'm going to get off of here. Okay. And for anyone that's following me on my own channel, I'll see y'all live sometime in 2025. I don't know when. Just be on the lookout. I've got some books. I've got like 5 books coming out in 2025. So I'll probably be doing lives for that too. But y'all see me soon. Okay. But anyway, for anyone that coming in the future that have just finished Women Who Run with the Wolves, I know you're sitting there weeping and you're crying and you're wanting to get back in touch or in touch with your wild self. I encourage the hell out of you. Go rogue, go feral, get in touch with your own psyche. I love you to death, and many, many blessings. Okay. I'm going to get off here now. Bye.